Beyond the Mic with Sean Dillon.
The editorial team at Amazon Books just released a list highlighting the best books to hit the shelves in 2019 so far. We're joined on the star line by Senior Editor, Amazon Books Editorial Department, Chris Schluep. Welcome, brother.
Thanks for having me.
Let's go beyond the mic. What's your favorite book from this list?
So my personal favorite is The Silent Patient, which is our number 2 book. It's by Alex Michaelides, and it's a thriller. It's a debut thriller. The basic story is there's a woman named Alicia Berenson. She's a famous painter. She's married to a glamorous photographer. They live in a big house in London. And then one day she comes home and she shoots her husband dead, refuses to speak again, eventually institutionalized in an institution outside of London. She won't talk again until this criminal psychologist comes along named Theo Faber, who kind of talks his way into treating her. Super cinematic, lots of twists and turns. Really surprised me when I first read it. I think it's definitely the thriller of the year so far and could well be the thriller of the year.
When putting together this list, how were the books selected? Were there horse trading? Was it, I'll let you have this book if you let me have this one? Especially with the number of books that you have to review for this.
Yeah, I mean, it's countless. It's, it really, all of us have a lot of experience in books, whether in publishing or book sales or here at Amazon. I mean, I've been here 7 years at Amazon doing this job, and there's a guy actually on our team who's been here 20 years doing this. So I think the experience helps, but if you could see our mail that comes in every day, the amount of books we get, it looks like an impossible task. But we read a lot. We talk about the books a lot. When we ultimately come down to figuring out the top 20 for a list like the best books of the year so far, we lock ourselves in a room and we bring out all our favorites and we argue and horse trade, and ultimately we come up with a list of 20.
You studied at Cornell University. What was your degree in?
It was actually I was a science major, but I always read, and ultimately I realized that was probably where I was going to end up.
Being a science major, where did your love of reading come from?
That's a good question. I mean, I was not a big reader as a child. I probably started in my teens, but it's just something that built over time. I realized I played a lot of sports and did lots of different things, but ultimately I realized that the thing that I kept going back to was the book, and that's now I've made a life out of it.
We're joined beyond the mic by Senior Editor from Amazon Books Editorial Department, Chris Schluep. Now, having worked at Random House, one of the big 5 publishers, how hard is it to select the top 10, and how hard is it with the pressure of all these big, huge publishers saying, hey, get on this list, you're going to really increase book sales?
Oh, yeah, that's definitely, that's true of everybody, though, right? And we have a kind of an advantage in that we're in Seattle. So most of these companies are in New York, we're in Seattle. You don't have to read your email, so we're really picking these things kind of almost in a vacuum here. So I don't actually feel a lot of pressure in any way. In fact, if I feel any pressure, it's to try to identify sort of smaller publishers.
Is there a book not on this list that you really wanted to make the list but just didn't make it? Well,
the book that I've been thinking about recently is a book called Sea Stories by Admiral William McRaven, and he's the guy who wrote Make Your Bed, if you remember that book. It was a big bestseller. Actually, it's still a big bestseller. And that book started from a speech he gave at University of Texas, I think a graduation speech, and he listed 10 things that he had learned as a Navy SEAL that would change your life. The first thing that he listed was make your bed, because if you make your bed, at least you've done one thing well in your day, and you can move on from that. So that book came out a few years ago. It was a huge bestseller. Right now, this year he brought out a book called Sea Stories, which is about his life as a Navy SEAL. This is a guy who caught Osama bin Laden, ran the operation that caught Osama bin Laden. He guarded Saddam Hussein. He's done a lot of amazing things. I mean, there are a lot of things people don't know about him that are incredible, and those stories are told in this book. I loved this book. It was just out of the top 20. It wasn't quite a book for the top 20, but it's it's highlighted in our history section. And we have 14 different categories, so we're able to, highlight books that didn't make the top 20 in those categories.
One of the things that I find helpful is the Amazon Book Review, www.amazonbookreview.com, where you review new books, get author interviews, and more.
Yeah, that's right. We have a blog called the Amazon Book Review, and we do 2 or 3 articles a day. I mean, we're working on this day in and day out. And we also have a podcast called the Amazon Book Review Podcast. So you can listen to us talk about books there. And we get a lot of good authors in, too. So Delia Owens, who wrote Where the Crawdads Sing, or Elizabeth Gilbert, who's the author of our #1 book of the year so far, City of Girls. I mean, people want to come talk to us, which is great.
Chris, what's the one thing that you want people to do more concerning reading?
I think not judge themselves. I think you can read for a variety of reasons, and that shifts over time. So I think people really think, like, am I reading, should I not be reading this book for pleasure? It's like, of course you should be reading that book for pleasure. You don't have to, books don't have to be that serious.
What book are you reading now that you're not even reading for work?
I am reading The Snow Leopard by Peter Matheson, but very slowly.
Time's running out, so it's time for the Rocking 8. First thing that comes to your mind, no pressure.
The Rocking 8?
Everyone's afraid of the Rocking 8, but it's real simple and easy. We'll start out with favorite children's book.
Favorite children's book? Harold and the Blue Crayon.
Book that everyone should have in their library.
Great Gatsby.
I know you shouldn't have favorites, but who's your favorite author?
Melville.
Favorite Lee Child's book?
What was the first? I can't remember what the first one was called. The Kill, whatever the first one was called. I can't remember what it was called now. The Big Kill.
Book that you can read over and over again.
What We Talk About When We Talk About Running by Haruki Murakami.
What's the most underrated book in your opinion?
That's a good one. Pass.
Last 3 songs that you heard played.
I think they were all by The Cure.
Favorite genre of book?
Right now it's thriller, mystery thriller.
What was the last book that you picked up that you couldn't put down and had to finish right then, right there?
The Silent Patient. I read in one sitting.
Wow. To see the complete list of the best books of the year 2019 so far, and to purchase them in Kindle or in print, visit www.amazon.com/best books so far. Senior editor for Amazon Books editorial department, Chris Schluep, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
And that, my friends, is Beyond the Mic.